Hey there, friend. Yeah, you. The one who's probably watching this late at night, maybe with a knot in your stomach, maybe with tears you're trying not to let fall. I see you. I know you because I was you. If you're here, chances are you've done one of the bravest things a human being can do. You've chosen truth over comfort, reality over illusion, and authentic life over conditional acceptance. You've left the watchtower. Or maybe you're still physically in, but mentally out. Pimo, as we say. Either way, you're awake. And I know, God, do I know, how much that awakening can feel like dying. I need you to hear something right off the bat. Every single thing you're feeling right now is valid. The anger that makes your hands shake, valid. The grief that hits you in waves so strong you can't breathe, valid. The fear that maybe, just maybe, you've made the biggest mistake of your life, that's valid too. Even that weird guilty feeling of relief that whispers in quiet moments, especially that. You're not crazy, you're not weak, you're human, and you're processing one of the most profound losses a person can experience, the death of everything you thought you knew about reality. Now, I'm not a mental health professional, and this is not mental health advice, but let's not sugarcoat it. When you leave the organization, you lose more than just a religion. For those of us born into it, you lose your whole universe. Every single relationship you've ever had comes with strings attached. Strings that get cut the moment you step outside those carefully drawn lines. Your mother's love, conditional. Your best friend since childhood, conditional. That elder who was like a father to you, who taught you to tie a tie and gave you your first talk assignment, his affection was conditional too. I remember the day I realized this, really realized it, not just intellectually, but in my bones. I was sitting in my car after a meeting, watching families walk to their cars, and it hit me. Every single I love you I'd ever heard came with an asterisk. I love you as long as you believe. I love you as long as you obey. I love you as long as you never, ever question. That's not love. That's emotional hostage taking. And it's not just the people we lose. We lose our entire framework for understanding the world. From the moment I could form memories, I knew that Armageddon was coming any day now. I knew that birthdays were evil, that my classmates were bad association, that higher education was dangerous, that independent thinking was literally from Satan. I knew that I had the truth, capital T, and everyone else was walking in darkness. When that certainty crumbles, what's left? Who are you when everything you've been taught about yourself, about the world, about the very nature of reality turns out to be wrong? It's like being 40 years old, grown, established, supposed to have your life together, and suddenly realizing you have to learn how to walk again. You have to learn how to think again. We need to talk about shunning. You're either experiencing it or living in fear of it. And we need to call it what it is, psychological torture. The organization will dress it up, call it scripture, call it loving discipline, call it a loving act, claim it's for your own good. But stripping someone of every meaningful relationship they've ever had because they disagree with your theology, that's not love. That's not discipline. That's abuse. I've read about sisters who cross the street when they see their own siblings approaching, about a father who wrote that it would be unthinkable for any family member to attend his son's wedding. One woman described how her mother lined up the whole family to say goodbye the night before her disfellowshipping was announced. One last hug from confused siblings who didn't understand why they'd never speak to their sister again. Even at funerals, the shunning continues. Family members who haven't seen each other in decades sitting in the same kingdom hall, unable to acknowledge each other's existence beyond perhaps a cold hello. This is not normal. This is not healthy. This is not love. If you're being shunned right now, I need you to understand something. The pain you feel is not evidence that you've made a mistake. It's evidence that you're human, that you're capable of real love, that you bonded with people the way we're meant to bond, wholly, genuinely, without conditions. The tragedy isn't that you're feeling this pain. The tragedy is that an organization convinced people that their love for you should be conditional. One of the most insidious things about high control groups is how they teach you to distrust your own thoughts. Remember all those talks about how the heart is treacherous and independent thinking leads to apostasy? That programming runs deep. Even now, years after leaving, you might still be second guessing your own perceptions, wondering if that critical thought is coming from Satan, if that doubt is a sign of spiritual weakness. Here's what I've learned. That voice telling you to doubt yourself, that's not God. That's not wisdom. That's the echo of manipulation, the ghostly fingerprints of thought control, cobwebs left in the corner of your mind by the indoctrination you endured. Learning to trust your own mind again is like physical therapy after an accident. It's slow, sometimes painful, but absolutely necessary. Start small. Trust yourself to choose what to have for lunch without consulting anybody else. Trust yourself to form an opinion about a movie without checking the reviews to see what you should think about it. Trust yourself to feel what you feel without immediately trying to suppress it or explain it away. These might sound like tiny, insignificant things, but they're not. They're the building blocks of intellectual freedom. You know what's wild? The first time I allowed myself to research something, really research it as I was waking up, with sources that weren't published by the Watchtower, I was nervous. Kept looking over my shoulder like someone was going to catch me doing something bad. That's not a normal response to reading. That's a conditioned fear response. That's what mind control looks like. But here's the beautiful thing. The more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you trust your own judgment, the stronger it becomes. You start to realize that you're actually pretty good at thinking, that your questions aren't dangerous, they're necessary, that your doubts aren't weakness, they're wisdom trying to break through. Then there's that looming question. Who am I without the organization? This might be the scariest question you'll ever have to ask yourself. When your entire identity has been wrapped up in being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, who are you when that's gone? Pioneer, elder, ministerial servant, publisher. These weren't just roles we played, they were who we were. Take that away, and what's left? I'll tell you what's left. You are the real you. The you that existed before the organization got its hands on you, even if you were born in. The you with unique talents, genuine interests, authentic desires. The you that maybe loved science fiction, but never admitted it because it was demonic or worldly, or taking time away from Watchtower publications that you were told you should always read first. The you that always wondered what college would have been like. The you that felt a pull towards art or music or politics or philosophy, but pushed it down because it wasn't spiritual. That person is still in there, waiting. Discovering who you really are is terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. It's like being a teenager again, but with bills to pay and maybe kids to raise. You have to try things on, see what fits. Maybe you'll find a different faith that actually feels like home. Or maybe you'll leave faith behind or come to your own spiritual conclusions. I'm not here to tell you what's right for you. I remember the first time someone asked me what my hobbies were. I realized I didn't have any. Not real ones. Everything I did was somehow tied to the organization. My hobbies were studying Watchtower publications and going in field service. That's not a life. That's a performance. So I started trying things. I read fiction without checking if it was appropriate. I watched movies Watchtower would frown upon. I watched a great philosophy series on YouTube. Hank Green, Fast Philosophy, wonderful. I joined a secular meetup group for a while. I studied all manner of different faith traditions. My personality was still the same. I was just extracting Watchtower from it and filling those holes with what I really enjoyed. It took 7 years for me to fully deconstruct and reconstruct my faith to what it is now. So strong that I could face and silence my imposter syndrome and write a book about it. You're allowed to be a beginner at your own life. You're allowed to not know who you are yet. You're allowed to try things and fail and try something else. That's not shameful. That's human. Nobody really talks about this part, But one of the hardest things to process is the grief over lost time. All those Saturday mornings spent knocking on doors of people who did not want to talk to us. All those evenings in kingdom halls and assembly halls and convention centers. All those opportunities we passed up, those dreams we didn't pursue, those relationships we didn't nurture because they were worldly. I think about the scholarship I turned down, the girl I didn't date in high school because she wasn't a witness, the career I didn't pursue because it would have interfered with meetings, the birthdays I didn't celebrate, the holidays I didn't enjoy, the simple human pleasures I denied myself because I was told they were wrong. It's okay to grieve these things. It's okay to be angry about them. You were robbed. We were all robbed, not just of time, but of experiences, of the chance to make informed choices about our own lives. When you realize that the narrow path you were on was actually just a cattle chute, the anger is justified. But here's what I've learned about that anger. It's fuel. Use it. Let it propel you forward into making the most of the time you have left. You can't get those years back, but you can make sure the years ahead aren't wasted on someone else's agenda. What I like to say is this: I am who I am because I've been through what I've been through, and I like who I am, so no regrets. If you're not already there, you will be. Time heals all wounds, as they say. So, how do you build a life from scratch? How do you create meaning when the framework you've always used is gone? First, you've got to accept that it's going to be messy. You're not going to wake up one day with a fully formed worldview and a 5-year plan. It's more like, remember those old TV sets where you had to adjust the antenna to get a clear picture? I'm telling my age here. It's like that. You're constantly adjusting, trying to get things to come into focus. For some of us, spirituality remains important, maybe in a different form, but important. Maybe you find a church that actually preaches love without conditions. Maybe you realize that you can talk to God without an organization mediating the conversation. For others, leaving the organization means leaving faith altogether. And you know what? That's okay too. The truth is, some people are so damaged by religion that they will never trust again. I get that, and I, for one, do not believe that God judges people harshly who have been so wounded. For me, I found meaning in the strangest places, in really good coffee on Saturday mornings at a coffee shop when I used to have to be out in service, and helping my kid with homework without worrying about whether the subject matter was appropriate or Bible-based, which really just meant Watchtower-based, and volunteering for causes I care about. Not because I'm counting time, but because it genuinely matters to me. I volunteered countless times at a local food bank, and once my work schedule allows me to, I'm going to get right back to volunteering again. And here's a big one: finding meaning in deep conversations with worldly people who turn out to be some of the kindest, most ethical humans I've ever met. You get to choose now. That's terrifying, but it's also the most beautiful gift imaginable. You get to decide what matters to you. You get to determine your values. You get to create your own meaning. Can we talk about how weird normal life is when you've been in a high control group? Like the first time I went to another church, oh Lord, I felt a chill of fear run down my spine. Even though I'd been awake and out for over a year, that old indoctrination was still there. But you know what cured it? Going back again and again and again, and seeing how wonderful people can be who are there because they want to be and not out of fear of destruction by God at Armageddon. The first time I voted, I was so embarrassed because I had no idea how it worked. I had to ask the attendant at the poll how to do everything, and I was over 40 years old. This simple act that most people take for granted, having a say in your community and how it's run, that felt revolutionary to me because it was. For me, it was. Making friends without an agenda is another adjustment. You know how in the organization, every relationship had this underlying purpose. You were always supposed to be encouraging each other spiritually, helping each other stay strong, watching for signs of weakness that you could report on. Real friendship, where you can just exist together without any ulterior motive, that's a revelation when you get out. Whatever it is, your first birthday party, your first Christmas tree, listening to music frowned on by the watchtower. Here's the beautiful thing. Worldly people, God, I hate that term, but you know what I mean. They are, by and large, kind and understanding when you explain where you're coming from. I've had so many conversations that started with, so this is going to sound weird, but I was raised in a cult. And instead of people running away, they lean in. They're curious. They're compassionate. They help you navigate this strange new world. And you know what? Most of them are related to a witness or knew one from work or school or something like that. And I ended up connecting the dots for them, helping them understand those folks through my unwitnessing. One of the most healing things you can do after leaving is finding others who understand. And I don't mean just people who nod sympathetically when you try to explain what it was like. I mean people who know, people who understand why you flinch when someone says the truth, people who get why doorbell sounds make you anxious, people who understand the complicated grief of being shunned by your own family. The EXJW community was a godsend for me. There were days when the only thing keeping me going was knowing that other people had survived this, had built beautiful lives on the other side of it. Online forums, support groups, YouTube activists, meetups that Beth and I hosted here in town, these became my new congregation. Except this time, the love was unconditional. In these spaces, you can be honest about the hard stuff. You can admit that you miss aspects of the organization, the community, the certainty, the structure, without people assuming you want to go back. You can process the mind melt of simultaneously knowing you made the right choice and grieving everything you lost. You can laugh about the absurdities. Remember doing field service and laundromats? And cry about the tragedies without judgment. But it's not just about shared trauma. It's about shared growth. Watching other XJWs build careers, find love, pursue education, create art, raise free children, it's proof that there's life after the tower. Good life, rich, full, meaningful life. The first friends Beth and I made out of the cult weren't XJWs. They were our next door neighbors, an older couple that Beth spoke to when they first were moving in. Beth taught ballet for years, and in her conversation with the wife, she discovered that she was a former royal ballerina, one of the world's most premier companies. Her husband was a retired lieutenant colonel who worked in military intelligence and was also a medical doctor. They were wonderful, kind, and put up with countless hours of us unloading everything we've been through on them. I'm so grateful they moved next door. They were our first proof that worldly people could be amazing people. Are there some awful people out there? Absolutely. Just like there were some awful people inside the Kingdom Hall. It's not different. You just have the freedom now to stop pretending that it is. If you have children, leaving gets even more complicated, I know. How do you explain to them that everything you taught them before was wrong? How do you help them navigate relationships with believing family members? How do you raise them without the structure you've always known, even if that structure was harmful? I had to face that because my youngest was about 7 and my oldest about 10 when I left. It was hard for them at first, especially for my son, the oldest. He didn't understand why we weren't going out in service, especially because my ex-wife is still very much a hardcore believer in Jehovah's Witnesses, and we share custody. But kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. They adapt. What damages them isn't change, it's dishonesty. Be age appropriately honest with them. Acknowledge that you believed something that you no longer believe. Show them that it's okay to change your mind when you get new information. Model critical thinking for them. That's what I tried to do, and both my children came around fairly quickly. That also really helped that not being a witness is way more fun than being one, and they saw that too. And here's a gift you can give them that we never got: unconditional love. Love them if they question you, and they will. Love them if they disagree with you, and they will. Love them if they make choices you wouldn't make. Show them what real love looks like, the kind that doesn't come with terms and conditions. Watching my kids experience normal childhood things, birthday parties, outside activities, the freedom to pursue their interests without checking if it's spiritually dangerous, that healed something in me. It's like I'm experiencing a free childhood vicariously through them. Their freedom helps me believe in my own. Now, let's be real here. Leaving doesn't solve all your problems. In some ways, it creates a whole set of new ones. There's practical stuff. If you are financially dependent on witness employers or clients, you might be facing real economic hardship. If you're married to a believer, your relationship might be strained or implode. If all your social support was in the organization, you might face profound isolation. And there's the psychological stuff. Religious trauma syndrome is real. PTSD from spiritual abuse is real. The anxiety, depression, and complex grief that comes with leaving a high control group, those are real. You might need professional help to process it all. And that's not just okay, it's wise. I went to a therapist for some time, and it was incredibly helpful. I was paying her, so I didn't feel bad about unloading everything about the cult on her. It was her job. And she listened without judgment, asked the questions that I needed to be asking myself. She never really gave me any advice, just gave me a space to say everything I always needed to say. And in doing that, put so many pieces together that I otherwise probably wouldn't have. Finding a therapist who understands changed everything for me. Having someone validate that what I experienced was genuinely traumatic, that my responses were normal given what I'd been through, that I wasn't crazy or weak or broken, it was like finally being able to exhale after holding my breath for 40 years. There's no shame in struggling. There's no shame in having bad days, bad weeks, bad months. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong and free and grateful. Other days you'll feel like you're drowning in grief and anger and regret. Both are part of the process. Now let's talk about anger. Really talk about it. Because at some point in your journey out, you're going to feel rage. Not just irritation or frustration. I'm talking about white hot, shake your fist at the sky, want to burn it all down, rage. I damaged a coffee table pretty badly one day because I kicked it so hard in a moment of fury that I knocked it over. Maybe it hits when you realize how many lies you were told. Maybe it's when you research the organization's history and discover all the failed predictions, the covered up scandals, the lives destroyed. Maybe it's when you're sitting alone, knowing that your family is off somewhere celebrating something without you. Maybe it's when you realize you gave your youth, your money, your energy, your devotion to an organization that views you as disposable the moment you question it. I had never been drunk before, but the night that cracked open the truth about the truth, let's just say the next morning was an unpleasant new experience for me. This anger, it's sacred. It's necessary. It's your psyche's way of protecting you, of saying what happened to us is not okay. Don't let anyone shame you for it. Don't let anyone tell you to move on or let it go before you're ready. You have every right to be furious. I spent months in the anger stage. I wrote emails and texts that I never sent. I had imaginary arguments in the shower. I researched obsessively, needing to understand exactly how and why I'd been deceived. I raged at the governing body, at the elders, at my parents, at myself for not seeing it sooner. And you know what? That anger was fuel. It powered me through the hardest parts of leaving. It gave me the strength to set boundaries, to refuse to be manipulated anymore, to build a new life. Anger, when channeled correctly, is rocket fuel for change. But, and this is important, you can't live there forever. At some point, for your own well-being, you have to find a way through it. Not around it, not over it, but through it. You have to feel it fully, and then, when you're ready, start to let it transform into something else. For me, it eventually became a kind of fierce protectiveness for my own freedom, my children, for others still trapped. Thus, this channel was born. One of the most powerful things you can do is reclaim your narrative. The organization told you a story about your life, that you were blessed to be raised in the truth with your spiritual heritage, that any suffering was for your spiritual benefit, that leaving would result in misery and destruction. But that's their story, not yours. Your story might be about survival or courage, about choosing authenticity even when it costs you everything, about learning to think for yourself in a world that punished independent thought, about building real relationships after only knowing conditional love, about discovering joy in places you were taught to fear. Write it down if you need to. Tell it to someone you trust. Share it publicly if you feel called to do that. Or keep it private as your own personal declaration of independence. However you do it, own your story, all of it. The pain, yes, but also the strength. The losses, yeah, but also the gains. The death of your old life, but also the birth of your new one. For years, I let them define me. First as a faithful witness, then as an apostate. But I'm neither of those things. I'm a human being who was raised in a high control religion, recognized it was harmful, and had the courage to leave despite the cost. I'm a father trying to raise free children and be a good husband. I'm a man learning to trust his own mind and heart. I'm someone building an authentic life one day at a time. That's my story. What's yours? Now, can we talk about joy for a minute? Because yes, there's pain in leaving. Yeah, there's loss and grief and anger, all of that. But there's also joy. Unexpected, sometimes overwhelming joy. I took the family to a friend's baseball game. Jimmy Bell, which some of you probably know, he played in the league for his job at the time. The game was on Sunday, and we were still pretty new to being out of the cult. As we're sitting in the bleachers watching, I turned to my wife, Beth, and said, "It's Sunday afternoon, and we're not at the meeting. Feels like we're getting away with something." Then there's the joy of sleeping in on Saturday morning without guilt. The joy of reading whatever you want without checking if it's approved. The joy of having a conversation without mentally counting it as informal witnessing. The joy of making friends based on genuine connection rather than some shared ideology. I devoured religious and spiritual books of every kind and every faith. I learned about actual Christian history for the first time, not the cherry pick claims Watchtower makes about so called first century Christianity. This was from actual Bible scholars who knew what they were talking about. For so many XJWs, they wake up because of XJW activists, and that's great, but that wasn't me. It was the truth about Christianity that woke me up. Actual scholars who could read and translate the original languages, who knew the history and could explain it free of fear that not having everything right would somehow bring the whole house of cards down. With Watchtower, once you know one thing's a lie, it all falls apart. That's not how true faith works, though. I don't need to know all the answers. I just need to know the one who does. But again, that's me. And I also read countless books on science, astronomy, quantum physics, everything. I visited a bunch of churches and religious institutions. I did whatever I wanted if it interested me. I was free, and it was wonderful. There's joy in simple things too, in having facial hair because you like how it looks, and watching whatever movie you want without worrying about its rating, and pursuing education for the sheer pleasure of learning, and donating to causes you care about because you want to, not because you're obligated to. And there's profound joy in the big things too, and authentic relationships where you're loved for who you are, not what you believe, and finding purpose that comes from within rather than being imposed from without, and watching your kids grow up free and becoming the person you were always meant to be. Now, a word about faith. I know this is complicated for many of us. Some leave the organization and find a different expression of Christianity that actually feels like good news. Some explore other spiritual traditions. Some become atheists or agnostics. We all have our own path. If you still believe in God, you get to discover what that means without an organization interpreting it for you. You can read the Bible or not without someone telling you what it means. You can pray or not without using prescribed formulas. You can have a spiritual life that's actually spiritual, not organizational. If you've lost faith entirely, that's okay too. There's something liberating about accepting uncertainty, about saying, "I don't know," and being comfortable with that, about finding meaning in human connection in nature, in art, and service to others without needing it to be cosmically significant. That's not been my path, but I respect everyone's freedom. And I have close friends who aren't Christian, including atheists. That doesn't threaten me anymore because I'm not a witness anymore. I'm not in a cult. What matters is that it's your choice, your genuine, informed, freely made choice. Not something you inherited or were indoctrinated into, but something you've arrived at through your own journey. If you're still a Christian, check out my faith-based channel in the video description. You'll find it far different from the guilt-ridden, shame and fear-filled talks at the Kingdom Hall. And here's the thing, it doesn't bother me if you disagree with my conclusions. Imagine that. Here's something nobody told me. Leaving isn't a one-time event. It's a process. Years later, you'll still occasionally discover ways the organization shaped your thinking that you hadn't realized. You'll still sometimes catch yourself responding to situations based on that old programming. That's normal. Healing happens in layers. Even years later, an old Kingdom song will pop into my head and I find myself humming it. Not the horrible new pop-like stuff that they play now, but the ones from back when we had a sister who played the piano in the corner when I was a child, before we even had recordings on cassette tapes. I still have fond memories of that from when I was little, and those songs pop into my head. But I can tell you this, it gets better, so much better. The anxiety lessens, the nightmares fade, the guilt loosens. The anger transforms into fuel for building a better life. The grief, even if never completely gone, becomes bearable, even poignant, a reminder of how far you've come. You build new traditions. You create chosen family. You discover what actually matters to you. You learn to trust yourself. You find purpose that's authentically yours. You experience love without conditions. You become who you really are. Is it easy? No. Worth it? Absolutely, no matter how long you were in. A few years ago, I got an email from an 80-year-old lady who had just left the cult after spending her entire life in it. I will never forget it. She said that even one day of freedom is worth it. Bravo. So true. Now, I can't end this video without acknowledging those who didn't make it. The ones who couldn't bear the shunning, the loss, the starting over, who saw no way out except the final one. Every EXJW community has these stories, these faces we remember, these lives cut short by despair. If you're reading this and you're in that dark place, please reach out to someone, anyone. The EXJW community, a therapist, a suicide hotline. I know it feels like the pain will never end, like you'll never belong anywhere again, like you've lost everything, but you haven't lost everything. You've lost a lot, but not everything. You haven't lost your capacity to heal, to grow, to build new connections, to find meaning, to experience joy again, even if that seems impossible right now. You haven't lost your future, even if you can't see it through the darkness. Please stay. Please give it time. Please let those of us who've walked this path show you that there's light on the other side, because there is. I promise you there is. If you've made it this far, my friend, you're going to make it all the way. I know it doesn't feel like it some days. I know the losses feel unbearable and the future feels impossible and the pain feels like it's going to swallow you whole. But you've already done the hardest part. You woke up. You chose truth over comfort. You chose authenticity over acceptance. You chose freedom over the cage, even though the cage felt safe. That takes a kind of courage most people will never need to summon. You've already proven you have what it takes to build a new life. Now it's just a matter of doing it, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one small freedom at a time. Welcome to your real life. It's messier than the one you left. It's less certain. It's got its own challenges for sure, but it's yours, really, truly yours. And that makes all the difference. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not doomed. You're awake. You're free. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. And that's worth everything you've lost and more. From one traveler to another, with love and hope and fierce solidarity, you've got this. We've got this together. I'm going to close with a poem that I wrote. It's the inspiration for the tattoos that I've got. If you're an EXJW, you will absolutely be able to relate, but even if you're not, the odds are high that you're going to get it. It's called The Serpent and the Wolf. A man walked down a forest path beneath a crescent moon. He moved with hasty, hurried steps in the cold of winter's ruin. He crossed a dried-up riverbed and happened on a glade. Beneath an overhanging bush, a wolf sat in the shade. About his side a serpent coiled, its red eyes fire and blood. In fear the man desired to flee, but frozen still he stood. At last he's here, the wolf now said as it looked across the glade, its blue eyes flashing brightly in the moonlit bush's shade. You speak, the man emote, all piercing through his heart. Of course we do, as well as you, came the serpent's sharp retort. The man dropped down and praised the gods for their presence in his sight. Get up, you fool, the serpent hissed. There are no gods here tonight. But tell us why you make such haste through this forest in the dark, instead of taking rest and warmth at home upon the hearth. I'm on the run, replied the man, from the village of my youth, for I dared to seek for knowledge and enlightenment in truth. They chained me, but I found the key and fled for forest cover. I left behind my writings so I may enlighten others. In doing so, I shone a light upon their folly ways, and now I fear they've chased me here to silence and doomsay. The wolf stared at the traveler's face with its signs of age and wear. No harm will come upon you now. You are safe with us right here. So take your ease beneath the moon within this peaceful place. Let your heart regain its valor and the lines melt from your face. The man glanced over his shoulder and back upon the two. The serpent wise, the wolf so strong, yet could the words be true? By now they must be on my heels. They are many and well armed. If I stay within this open glade, I will surely come to harm. Approach us now, the wolf said proud, voice booking no denial. We will stand with you against them, and you will best this fear in trial. The wolf and serpent parted, making space for him to join. The man walked in between them, hardly sure what he was doing. The clouds above cast shadows in the moonlight on the path, each movement sparking panic from the feared pursuer's wrath. Light your torch, the serpent ordered. It will calm unfounded fear. If your enemies approach us, we will see them for they near. The man did as instructed, and the glade engulfed in light, the shadows disappearing from the path and from the night. And the brightness of the moment, he could see a distance great, no villagers approaching, no weapons slicked with hate. As time crept towards the future, the wolf stood proud and firm, the serpent ever watchful, the man with courage burned. Still no villagers pursued him. The night was soft with ease, the only noise the crackling of the torch upon the breeze. The serpent broke the silence as he turned into their guest. Do you yet perceive the truth that has robbed your mind of rest? Your peril once was certain, your struggle real and true, but now it's avaricious. There are none that still pursue. Until you had the courage given to you by the wolf, and the wisdom of my vision, and the light cast by the torch, your chains remained upon you, even though you found the key, for you were safe completely, and yet still you chose to flee. At that the man fell to his knees in gratitude and shame, the tears upon his hollow cheeks illumined by the flame. You were right to call me fool, for I ran from ghosts unreal, when I should have taken solace and allowed my soul to heal. How e'er will I remember the vital lesson of this night, so I never more fall prey to the fallacy of fright. The wolf stepped now before him, and the man looked in its eyes. Their crystal blue compassion soothed his soul and calmed his cries. There is no call for shame, said the wolf in softened tones. This night revealed your mettle at the time you need it most. Many are the people that never find their ease, whose fear is never quenched and whose fleeing doesn't cease. There are many also whose village keeps them still, trapped within the borders of its fallacy and will. Yet here you stand in freedom, chains broken now at last, and we are with you always. You will not repeat the past. Upon those words, the wolf and serpent, as well as key and chain, along with moon and fiery torch, all vanished from the glade, and appeared upon the man's right arm, forever to abide, a reminder that the things we fear, we create ourselves inside. If you're still here, I hope you enjoyed the poem. If you're still a Christian, click the link in the video description for my faith-based channel. God bless, and I'll catch you in the next video. I wanted to take a second to tell you about my book. The Broken Mirror, Rediscovering Our True Nature in Christ, will transform how you see yourself forever. Stop living as a struggling sinner trying to be good enough and discover you're already a beloved child of God with His divine nature flowing through you. This book will free you from shame, give you unshakable identity, and show you how to access God's peace, wisdom, and strength from within. The book shows how this story unfolds from Genesis to Revelation and teaches you to live from rest, see others as fellow image bearers, and step into your true calling as a radiant reflector of divine light. Your daily struggles will become opportunities for God's nature to shine through you. Get ready to live the abundant life Jesus promised. The link to the book is in the video description. Hard copy, Kindle, and audiobook versions are all available. May God bless your journey along His path for you.